joining us for another leadership update. What we want to do today is we want to challenge you as a senior leader on whether you're really ready to embark on the journey that's necessary to build the culture that you need for your organisation. The way we're going to do is going to ask you three really important questions that you need to consider within yourself before you go down that path. The first of those is you need to really care about culture. Now, culture is one of those things at the moment that's a lot written about, there's a lot talked about. But what you've got to start with is within yourself, do I really care about company culture? So with this, first thing to think about is, do you actually know what it is? When you're talking about culture, what do you actually define culture as? In simple terms, it's the way we do it here, but the reason why we do it that way. They're the behaviours that we expect of everybody within the business and how that's going to translate into the results that we need. So the first thing is, do you actually know what it is? Second thing is, you start to think about the behaviours within the organisation that you want to see, or think about the sort of culture that you may want. Have you actually thought about yourself and whether you're role modelling those behaviours? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, you've got to think about the reason why you would actually start going down a culture path or embarking on building the culture that you need. Have you got a compelling reason for doing it? We actually run into a lot of organisations where a CEO or a GM or somebody very senior is going down this path because they actually think they have to. They've either read a lot about it, they've got a board of directors who are actually telling you need to do it, or you've got a more common one is you've got HR or people in culture actually telling you this is something that you need to do. So have you got a really compelling reason why? If the reason why is that I want to build a great environment for my people to succeed, then that's actually starting to get down the right path. And the final way to think about this is to ask yourself a really important question. Who is more important to me? Our customers and clients or our team? The answer to that question is going to test whether you really do care about culture. The best leaders in the world who build great organisational cultures have a really simple philosophy, and that is that the customer comes second. Your team members, your suppliers, the people that you work with, they come first. Caring about culture means you've got to really care about people. And it's about building an environment to help them succeed and be their best. And if we get that right, we know that that's actually going to flow through to the customer. Next question to ask yourself in terms of whether you're ready to embark on the culture that you need is you've got to be prepared to challenge your current culture. This is a difficult exercise for a lot of organisations and clients that we work with, because when you're actually starting to look at culture, there's usually a few reasons for it. A very common reason that we bump into is organisations going through quite a lot of growth. And as the company's growing, the most senior leaders in the business, particularly the founders or the CEO, want to make sure that they're actually capturing that culture and articulating that culture, because as we grow, we need more and more people to understand what makes us famous. So that's a really important reason to do it. Another reason, though, is perhaps our circumstances have changed, our market's changing, our strategy's changing, and as a result, we've got to start to ask ourselves the question of whether the way we do things is really going to work for us in the future. So in both of those cases, we've actually got to take an objective look at the current culture that we've got. In that first part, we need to be thinking back, which parts of our DNA and our heritage, or our foundations as we call it, do we need to make sure we capture? And we tell a real story around why those things are most important to us. So because we want to embed those, we want to amplify those. But at the same time, we've actually got to look at some of the entrenched behaviours of how we're working and just see which of these things aren't going to serve us in the future. So in both of those cases, we've got to be able to have an objective look as a senior leader and challenge the current way we do things and whether it's going to help us grow in the future. And the third thing we need to challenge ourselves on to check whether we're actually ready to embark on culture is we've got to be prepared to hold people accountable for culture. And this is probably the most difficult of the three in our experience in working with particularly senior leaders. And that's because you're going to invariably run into scenarios where you've got people that have been really good performers and have made a great contribution to the organisation, and now when we start to look at our culture, we start to ask questions of, are they a culture fit? For you to embark on building the culture that you need, you've got to be prepared to link the way we do things and the way people behave to the performance that we hold people accountable for. It's got to be built into every way we look at accountability. The best high-performance organisations for the last 10 or 15 years have been doing this. But unless you're prepared to hold people accountable for culture, you may not be as ready as you think you are to embark on this path. So to wrap it up, do you really care about the people in the organisation, the human beings that are working for you? Secondly, are you prepared to go through that probably difficult process of having aspects of the current culture called out, things that aren't working, having people say that to you? And finally, are you prepared to get to a stage where you may potentially lose somebody who seems like a really good person because they no longer fit with the culture that you're trying to build? These are difficult questions, but you as the senior leader are going to be the leader of this whole process. So much of the culture journey is going to hinge on you. So they're important questions to ask yourself before you start. It's a great challenge. We wish you all the best.